Okay, I'll admit, I don't play video games as much as I used to. Unfortunately, I have more expensive hobbies now, like photography, being a tech YouTuber, and getting married. But I used to play a lot of video games, yet somehow I've eluded the most popular game ever, Minecraft. This was until one of my friends messaged me like, hey, can you spin up a Minecraft server for my kids to play on? And I was like, you want me to take my production server that I use for a NAS for all my important documents and videos and also run extremely important services and websites on to run Minecraft? Hell yeah, let's do it. So with my limited knowledge of Minecraft, I looked up what it takes to run a server and apparently not much. So I got my hands dirty and ended up going with an image of Docker, and it's honestly super easy to do. So I'm going to share with you what I did to set it up and the different changes I made to make sure that it runs smoothly, to add plugins or mods, and to back up your world in case something happens or you want to transfer it. So let's talk about that and see what I did. Okay, so I went into this not knowing really much about Minecraft, and after doing some research, it doesn't seem that running a Minecraft server is really too hardware intensive. So I'm running this on my backup server, which is extremely low power. It's a Xeon 1240L processor, 4 cores, 8 threads with 16 gigs of RAM running Open Media Vault. So yeah, obviously nothing crazy at all. Now I wanted to run this in Docker because Docker is extremely convenient to use. It's easy to spin up and migrate to other systems if you need to. Now, if you aren't as familiar with Docker, don't worry, we're going to cover pretty much everything step by step. So just follow along and you will get there, I promise. Also, we're going with docker-compose for this. It just makes things easier. So make sure you have docker-compose installed. I'm not going to go over how to install Docker on your system or docker-compose or anything. It's pretty straightforward. Just Google your system installing Docker, and once you have that ready, come back to this point. Now I went with an image from Docker called itsg or itsg/Minecraft server. It's extremely popular. It works great. So I'm going to link everything down below. If you don't catch everything, it's okay. All the steps and everything I use will be in the comments below or the description below. So the version of Minecraft we are using is the Java version. Now, this is not crossplay compatible. This isn't compatible on consoles. So make sure before you do this that the version you're running is the image that you're using. They also have an image if you're running the Microsoft version for crossplay compatibility. You can run that Bedrock version, I think they call it, but this is the Java version. This is for PC only. So if you're using the Bedrock version, a lot of this stuff will carry over, but this is purely for the Java version. So you're probably assuming the first thing you want to do is get your docker-compose YAML set up, but we're going to do something first. We're going to set up our file system just to prepare ourselves for the YAML file and getting everything installed. So first step is to SSH or get into the terminal or the GUI interface of the system you have running Docker on. Now, I'm going to do everything in the command line, which is usually against what I do. I like GUIs. I like working in them. I use Portainer for Docker, but I want to make sure this is usable by everybody, regardless of whether you're using Portainer or some other Docker orchestrator or just straight up using the command line. As long as you're running Docker and Docker-compose on your system, these commands will work. All right, so my screen is divided up into 3 sections right now. The top left section is my desktop that I'm working on, my local machine. The bottom left is my server that I've SSH'd into that is running Docker, so you're gonna wanna do that. And the right is my docker-compose YAML file. We'll get to that in a second. So the first thing you're going to want to do is create a directory on your server to house your YAML file and pretty much the base file system. So that's what we're going to do. I am in my root directory right now. Here's a list of everything. What we're going to do is we're going to go into our home directory. You can do this wherever you want, but that's just where I'm going. So we're now in our home directory. You can see we have nothing there. I'm going to make a directory called Minecraft. You can, again, substitute whatever naming you want. I named it Minecraft because we're running Minecraft. I'm also going to create a folder in there called plugins. You'll see why later on in the video. So let's cd into our newly created Minecraft, and then we're going to make another directory called plugins. Now, next thing that we're going to want to do is create a volume. It's extremely easy to do. Type docker volume create, and then I named it Minecraft data. Again, you can name it whatever you want. To do that, it creates a Docker volume called Minecraft data. So now we are ready to look at our YAML file. Now, this is what tells Docker Compose what to run, what image to use, what volumes to use, a lot of settings on your Docker container, and it's just a more simple way of running a Docker container, running a regular Docker command versus using Docker Compose. It's preference. I personally like Docker Compose, so that's what I'm going with. So you can pretty much copy the exact YAML that I have here. You're obviously going to want to change a few things, but it's really straightforward. There's not much to it. Now, you're just going to want to make sure your YAML file is called docker-compose.yml, because that's by default what Docker Compose is going to look for when it spins up your container. So right here, we'll go through it. Version 3, services, we only have one called Minecraft. The image we use, make sure that's itzg/Minecraft-server. And volumes, this is the first thing that I want to touch on. Now remember, we just created our volume called Minecraft data. Whatever you called it, make sure that's specified here, colon, and then /data. This is what it's going to be referenced to inside the container. This does not change. The only thing that would change is this and what you named it in the step before. Now the next one, this isn't going to be a named volume. This is going to be a binding mount. So remember before when we set up our plugins folder? Well, that's what we're specifying here. Now, you can also create a mods folder. I'm not personally using mods in my Minecraft server. If you want to use mods, just do the same thing except with another folder called mods. But here you specify that same directory. Remember we did home/Minecraft/plugins, and that's what you'll list here, and then :/plugins. Ports, you can use the default one, which is 25565. If you want it to be a different one on the outside, you would change it here on the left, but make sure the right one is 25565. Environment variables, the only one you really need is this EULA true. The next ones are ones that I would suggest changing. So I am using type bucket. You can look in the documentation on GitHub for the Docker image that I'm using. You can have different types of servers. If you leave this blank, it'll be just a standard vanilla version of Minecraft with no plugins or mods or anything. But if you want to use the bucket style plugins, then you'll want to set the type to bucket. Ops or OPs or operators for your server, I would go in and set this to yourself or your Minecraft account name just to make sure you are a operator for the server by default. Now, if your server is externally facing and you want to be accessible outside of your LAN, I would strongly recommend setting enable whitelist to true as well as enforce whitelist to true. That way you can specify exactly which players you want to be able to access your server. And if you don't do this, pretty much anybody who has your IP can access your server. So if you want that, cool. If you don't, make sure these are set. And the rest is default. The last thing is volumes. Just make sure you have this volumes section inside your YAML with the name of the volume you specified before and set external to true. And that's it. That's our YAML file. That's what's going to build our server. It's pretty much all you need for the most part if you want to set up a basic server. All you have to do is put that on your server and run it. So that's what we're going to do. It's pretty easy. You can do it however you want to do it. If you want to download a program that FTPs it over, if you want to get a USB stick and plug it in and put it on there yourself, do it that way. I use SCP, so it's a pretty easy command, SCP. Also make sure you're in the directory where the YAML file is. This is on my desktop, so I'm in my desktop in the command line. So SCP, the name of the file is docker-compose.yml. Then where you want to log into, so it's going to be root at my IP address for my server, which is 10.0.0.44, colon, and then the directory location that you want to drop this file in. So we want to put it in home, Minecraft, and we'll just leave it there. So hit that, enter the password for your server, And just like that, it should be there. So if we go down to our server list, our Docker Compose is there. So honestly, after all this, you really don't need to do much more if you just want to spin up the server. All we have to do is run it. So that's what we're going to do. And the command we're going to run is docker-compose up d and force recreate. You don't need this force recreate in there, but it's good to have a habit of putting it in there just in case the container already exists. This will kill it and then recreate it. So we don't have one yet, but it doesn't matter. So we're going to run that and it is going to build it. Now, the first time you run it is probably going to have to download the image, which might take, a minute or two depending on your internet connection, but ours already has it. So it says it's done and we can go check on that by checking Portainer. Okay, so remember I said I'm using Portainer as my orchestrator. Now this just makes it easy to check on what's going on in the statuses. You can also do this in the CLI, but I like to use Portainer for this. It's starting up, takes a little bit depending on your processing power. It could take a minute or two, but that's okay. So you can see our container that it's spun up here, Minecraft_Minecraft1. If we go over to volumes, you'll see the volume that we created and you'll see that it's using this. And you can also see the ports that we published and that it's using the 25565 port that Minecraft is supposed to use. So we're going to give it a couple seconds and make sure that it's up and running. We can go ahead and open up Minecraft while we wait. See what's going on here. We're at 71%. All right, now remember how I said you can install plugins if you're using Bucket or whatever type you're using. Now, I'm using Bucket and we created that plugins folder and that's where we're going to drop them. Now it's extremely easy. Just navigate to the Bucket plugins homepage. You can scroll through. There's a crap ton of them out there. And it's extremely easy. All you're going to want to do is go into the one that you want, click on it, download the latest file, and it might give you a warning, but it's just a jar file. It's okay. And again, just like before, we're going to SCP that file into our plugins folder that we created, which was in home/Minecraft. Remember, we have a plugins folder, so any jar file that you put in there will be loaded into your server whenever you reboot or start it up. So extremely easy to do. I have a few that I've loaded in there. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, Minecraft is up and running. So if we go into Minecraft, we go to multiplayer, proceed, scanning network, but we're gonna go ahead and add a server. We'll call it Minecraft server, and the server address is the address of your Portainer or your Docker server. So in my case, remember it was 10.0.0.44. If you're using the default port address, then you don't have to enter that here. Click done, and look at that, instantly found it. I can go ahead and join the server, and just like that, I am playing Minecraft on the server I built in Docker. So now we have a crap ton of stuff on the screen now to look at the stats of the server and whatnot. You can look at it and determine the quality for yourself, but it does run pretty freaking good. And if that's all you want from here, then you're done. You can stop the video now and you have a Minecraft server. Congratulations. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to make sure that my Minecraft world was backed up properly, and if something happened, I wanted to make sure I had a backup and I knew how to restore the world in the event of a crash. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but I'm actually editing this video right now, and I'm realizing that I didn't include how to actually access your server's command line interface and actually interact with the server to whitelist players or change settings on the actual server. So let's talk about that. Don't worry, it's a one-liner. Just make sure you're remoted or SSH'd into the server that's running your Minecraft server. And you're going to run docker exec-i, your container name, then archon-cli. And that's going to put you into the command line of your Minecraft server. So from here, you can run all the commands. You can look up a list of everything you can do. But for example, you can add somebody to the whitelist add, and then their player name. That player does not exist in the Minecraft world. How about regular John? Okay, John is now allowed to access the Minecraft server. You can also change the difficulty of the server. Let's make it hard. And now, just like that, the difficulty of the server has been set to hard. And yeah, once you're done, just hit Control-D and you are finished. So that's it. I will return you to the regularly scheduled program. So the general premise behind this is that yes, I am running backups of my Portainer virtual machine, which will in turn back up the Minecraft server, but I also run other things on Portainer. So if something happens in my Minecraft server and we need to reset it to earlier in the day or the previous day, I don't want to kill everything else in my Portainer virtual machine just to reset Minecraft. So what we're going to do is individually back up the Minecraft data volume within our Minecraft server container. And then if we need to restore just that Minecraft data, we can pull in a archived version of that Minecraft data volume and then restore it. And it's honestly pretty easy to do. Now, the first step is to create a consistent backup of your Minecraft data Docker volume. So let's talk about that. So first thing I did was created a directory inside the etc folder. Again, you can do this wherever you want. You can name it whatever you want, but I put it in etc and I called it scripts. So we're going to cd into there. CD, and I've transferred over my script that I am using to run these backups. So if we look in there, you see a backup.sh. Let's take a look at that. Let me maximize this so we can take a look. So I'm not going to go over it line by line, but for the most part, you'll see here that you can pass some variables. So with V, you can pass some volume names that you want to back up within a specific container. You can pass A to true if you want to back up everything in that container. Output directory, this is where the backup tar file is going to be stored. C, the container name. R, this is going to be if you want to delete the directory every time you create a new backup. So if you only want to keep one version, set this to true and you'll just keep the latest version. Now, by default, it's false. So if you don't pass anything, it's just going to keep pretty much everything. So yeah. And D, the number of days you want to keep old files for. So if you set this to 7, it's going to keep every backup version for the last 7 days. So yeah, this is just declaring the variables, setting defaults, a lot of boring stuff, blah, blah, blah. So when we get to here, this is the first thing of real significance. This is where it's going to create our directory for housing our backup tar files. So we passed in the O variable, which is where we want to store it, and it's going to create a subdirectory in that location with the container name that we also passed, which you can see here. The next thing it's going to do is check our days back variable. So again, if you passed in 7, it's going to look at all the files that are older 7 days old and delete them. Next up, if you passed clear, it's going to clear everything from there. So it doesn't matter what your days back was. If you have clear set to true, it's going to wipe everything. And here is where it runs the command to back up the Docker volume. I'm not going to walk through this, but basically it's saying take the volume that we specified or the comma separated list of volumes we specified, take the data out of them, wrap them in a tar file, and dump them in the directory we specified. And then if everything went great, spit out an output. Again, all of this stuff is going to be linked in the description below. Now, if we want to run this periodically, we're going to want to enter a cron job, and it's extremely easy to do. All you have to do is enter cron tab -e. That's going to bring up your cron tab where you can enter cron jobs and specify how often you want them to run. So go to the bottom and you can look up the syntax for creating a cron job. I'll explain it pretty briefly here. The first section is to declare the frequency that you want it to run. Now, personally, I have it running twice a day at midnight and at noon. So the syntax for that is 0 space 0, 12, which is the hours you want it to run. Then we want that to run every day, every month, for every year, I think. Then we specify the command we want to run, and that is simply just bash the location of the script. So this is wherever you put it. Mine, remember, was etc/scripts/backup.sh, and then we specify our variables. So the volume we wanted to back up was Minecraft data. The container was Minecraft_1. The output directory is wherever you want to store it. So we didn't create a location for this yet, but I'll go back and do that. So we're going to store it in etc scripts backups. And we don't want things to be deleted, false by default, but I'm going to specify it. And we will keep these for, let's say, 7 days. Control O. Save, yes, and exit. Now we do have to create that backups folder. We're already in etc scripts, so we just have to mkdir backups, boom. And just like that, our directory is going to be backed up with tar files of our Minecraft data twice a day. And we can restore it if something ever happens. Now, let me show you how that's done. So I've just switched over to my production Minecraft server, which is where I have this running. And you'll see we have a bunch of backups from the previous day. You'll see a lot from today because I was testing things, but here's our tar files from our Minecraft server. So what I'm going to do is transfer one of these backups to my backup server, and we're going to restore our production Minecraft server on our backup server. So you may not use it like this. You may restore it to another container within your same server. So that would probably be easier, honestly, but let's do that. So let's pick a tar file and SCP that over, and we'll put that in our backup. Like, we'll assume this was a backup run. Remember, we did etc scripts backups. Actually, we put it in the container name, but for right now, we're just gonna put it in backups. That over, and it's about 300 megabytes, so it actually took like 5 seconds to run. Let's close that out, clear. And we will CD into our backups folder, and you can see our tar file is there. Now we just need to run the command to restore that tar file to our containers data folder. Okay, so now we need to restore our backup, and this is the command that we're going to run. Now I know it looks pretty intimidating, but let me explain, it's not too bad. You're gonna run docker run rm volumes from, which is essentially going to remove volumes from the container specified. And that container is going to be your Minecraft server container. In my case, it's Minecraft_1. Then you're going to pass essentially a temporary volume called backups, and this is going to point to the location of your tar file. So remember, we saved ours to etc scripts backups. If you're running the cron job, it's going to save to backups / the name of your container, but remember, we just manually transferred it to that backups folder. The next step is to run a bash command from within the container, and that is within quotes here. You can see the first thing we're doing is cding into our data directory, which is where we want to unpack the tar file. Then we're running the tar command to uncompress it, and we are specifying the location of that tar file. Now remember, we passed it as the /backup directory within the Docker container. So we specify /backup and then the name of the tar file. Now, last thing you'll see here is this strip1. We're using that because we have a directory in front of our tar file that we want to strip off. And you can see we only have one, we have /backup. If it's even deeper, maybe it's like /var/backup. In that case, you do strip2, but in our case, we are doing strip1. And when you run that, it's going to unpack everything into that location, and you should be good to go. Now let's go back into Portainer and start up our container. Give it a hot second. Remember, it took a couple minutes. Let's load up Minecraft again. Okay, we're up and running. So now we can go back into Minecraft, multiplayer, proceed, and look at that. Our server is back online again. You can see my new message of the day. That's an environment variable if you want to pass that. And let's go ahead and connect. And look at that. I am back in my world with my little fort that I've created, along with all my items, just like I had on my production server. So we created a Minecraft server using Docker Compose. We have it backed up twice a day. We learned how to transfer a file over or restore from a backed up file, and we're pretty much set. So that's kind of all I have for you guys today. I hope this was informative. I hope this helped out. I know there might be other ways to do it, but this has worked pretty great for me over the past couple of weeks. So I'm honestly proud of it, and I think it's running pretty good. So if you want to copy this verbatim, go ahead. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask below in the comments or join the Discord, which is also in the description. We have a bunch of people hanging out on there. I'm always on there, so feel free to stop by and ask some questions or share about your projects. But that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like below. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.